My name is Caleb Anderson, and you're listening to Jesus the Overcomer podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to Jesus the Overcomer podcast. I want to start off by saying we took the month of July off. So if you've been wondering, if you've been missing any episodes, you haven't. It's just July was a really busy month for me and kind of for the church. So I had a lot of stuff going on. So this is the first one back. So welcome back. My first guest is Adam Brown. Thank you for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's I'm looking forward to it.
Um, what's funny is the person who does the sound for the podcast is his brother, Daniel Brown. So two brothers in the room. So you should feel comfortable.
Yeah, well, and also his crazy mom is doing is doing the camera. So if I'm busting out laughing here and there, it's probably because she's making faces. So, FYI.
So we're gonna go ahead and go right into the starter question. It's the question I ask all my guests. It is, who or what has had the most impact on your walk with God?
That would definitely be my family. I think due to just my mom and dad, my grandparents definitely being raised in the ways of the Lord, and even at a young age being in church and that foundation set, I think definitely made the biggest impact. Because even through some of the toughest times of my life, and my parents on their knees praying for me, pleading God to save me during my time of running and things like that, most definitely had the biggest impact in my life. And I'm so thankful for a godly family, a godly heritage that knows God, that prays, that loves God, and has shown me what it means to walk with God. I think has definitely been what's been the most impact of my life.
Yeah, that's great. I think family um, that has strong Christian values and they're leading their kids, or if it might be grandparent, their grandkids or whatever. I think that's a great way. A lot of people can relate to that. Some people can't, but a lot of people can.
Oh yeah.
And I think parents, pray for your kids because they need that
Oh yeah,
covering a prayer.
I'm living proof. My brother Daniel here is living proof. Josh is living proof. We all ran and done some dumb things definitely, and I mean it definitely came from praying parents on their knees,
Yeah.
crying out to God is why we're all here, why we're all walking with the Lord. So if there's I would encourage any parents out there. If your children are just struggling or running or going through a hard time or whatever, keep praying. Don't give up. God hears and God will answer. Because I mean, I'm living proof for
Yeah,
sure.
that's awesome. Going right into our regular questions, I am going to ask, what was your life like before you had the life changing encounter with God?
So I got really caught up in. Some people know my testimony, but I got really caught up in drugs and alcohol and things like that. And I got really bad off. And sometimes the enemy is so cunning in his ways. It just starts off with small compromises, small peer pressure, with just smoking cigarettes or just smoking a little bit of weed or drinking just one beer, and it kind of opens that door. And I know all that seems innocent and seems okay, but at least I've known many people. That's kind of where it all started, with these small little compromises. And I think that's exactly why the scriptures say the small foxes destroy the vine, and it became so true. And I began to you know, get into the crowd of wanting just to smoke weed and starting to drink and partying, and then that began to kind of grow into doing harder drugs and worse things and running from God, and became depressed. I remember sitting out in a field cutting myself, saying, think I cut no one. I just felt alone and like cutting. I just want to die because I just felt I was at a place of just complete hopelessness. And I think
Mhm.
that's definitely where the enemy wants to bring you, is a place of hopelessness. And it just felt like I would never ever change. I would never ever stop. And it was even kind of in I got to a place like I wanted to stop all the hard drugs. I was really bad on cocaine and then whatever else I could do, and like I wanted to stop that but continue with smoking weed and drinking
Mhm.
beer, kind of like, well, if I could just stop that, I'll be okay. But it got to the place where I realized it's either all or nothing.
Mhm.
And doing these little things and trying to kind of build my own life opposed to just surrendering it all to God. I began to realize I definitely got to give it all, because I mean I got really bad off. I got to the place, I mean, I was stealing checks and money from my parents, from my brother. He's sitting here. Stole checks from him, from my grandparents. I mean, anywhere in it, from friends. I mean, anywhere and everywhere. It's a life that just thinks about yourself. That's all I thought about, was getting my next fix, getting my next high, and I did not care who I hurt. I got to a place, and like my mom even remembers, I got to a place where I was so numb of like emotion. Like I, my mom could be weeping and crying, or my dad could be weeping and crying in my face. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you're stealing all this money? You're hurting us. And it was like I couldn't even feel emotion. I didn't even care. All I thought about was my next high.
Mhm.
And I was just so consumed that the enemy had me right where he wanted me. And I'm so thankful that God saved me. And I remember when I finally came to the place to where I wanted to stop, I was like, I don't want this life anymore. And I got to the place to where I was going to go the teen challenge. And I remember sitting there. I remember exactly where I was sitting. I was with a friend. We were drinking alcohol and smoking weed. And my dad called me and said they had accepted me, and I was going to go like the next day or two or whatever. And I remember, and I think it's about the only time I think I've heard God audibly. And when he called, my friend was like, "Oh, you don't have to go. You ain't that bad off. Don't worry about it." And I literally could hear a voice audibly say, "You're going." And like my whole demeanor changed, because even my friend was like, "Dude, like, you're going, aren't you?" Like my whole demeanor changed. It was like, I think the only time I've ever like audibly heard the voice of God. And then I went, and then and I don't know if you were going. I may be jumping ahead. I don't know
You're
what his
fine.
questions are.
You're fine.
But anyway, I went the first time, but I went more for, I wanted to go, but I also went more for like my mom and dad
Mhm.
than for myself. And um I stayed 5 months because I felt like I wasn't that bad off. And I believe maybe what I talked about earlier when I heard the audible voice was the second time I went. But either way, I went twice to Teen Challenge, and the first time I went, I stayed 5 months. And I got to the place because I was hearing all these other guys' stories and testimonies at Teen Challenge, and like, theirs sounded so much worse than mine. And I
Mhm.
was like, well, and the enemy was just whispering in my ears, "You won't that bad off. Listen to these guys. They were so much worse than you." And like, I began to fight that, and I went more for my mom and dad the first time than for myself, like I said. And then after like 5 months, I left. I stayed strong for about 3 months, and then, I mean, one night I was right back to square one and got right back in the same old mess. And then about a year and a half later, like I said, I went back for me, and I was willing to surrender all, willing to do whatever the rules. I didn't care how long
Mhm.
I had to stay. I was done, and I've been saved, clean, and sober ever since.
That's awesome. Um, I liked when you talked about you got to a place to where you felt hopeless because I think you're right. That's where Satan wants to get us in
Yeah,
whatever sin um he he tempts you with. It leads to a place of hopelessness. He might like show you like something that's it's pleasurable, but then you get there and you're like, that doesn't really please me because God has a place in your heart where only He can fill it, and you
yeah,
need Him, and you can try to fill it with anything, drugs, alcohol, porn, whatever, um, money. You can anything physical, and if you don't surrender your life to God, that place is not going to be filled, and you're just going to be hopeless. So I love how you said that because it's a great reminder for people. Like
Yeah,
it's you can get to that place, but you have other option. So,
definitely. Because I mean, like I said, man, I was just lost and so hopeless and depressed and just
mhm,
felt like nothing was going to change. This is who I was going to be.
mhm,
And when God stepped in, man, he
yeah,
he changed it all. And I mean, it was just amazing. I'm so, like I said, even back to your first question, man, I'm just so thankful for my parents praying and on their knees and battling. I mean, I know my parents went through spiritual warfare over all three of us,
mhm,
and really battled over our spirits and our souls, and they paid off. And I'm just so grateful and so thankful that the Lord had mercy on us. Because
yeah,
I mean, I could still be lost. I remember at times, dude, driving around so messed up, been up for days, been drinking on pills, and had no business driving, no business with the person who may have been driving or me driving, and still don't even know how we got to point A or point B,
mhm,
and could have easily killed somebody or killed ourselves or could have easily OD'd. I mean, through the stupid stuff we did, and I mean, it's just so thankful that God definitely had mercy and even in the midst of my hopelessness,
yeah,
showed me hope.
yeah. Going right from that, you talked about team challenge, and I wanted you to explain a little bit what team challenge is for people who don't know.
Okay.
And then also go a little deeper into your experience there, like what, um, how are they different, and how did they really help?
Okay. For sure. Well, they definitely helped. I'm living proof of of what Teen Challenge definitely can do if you go and give it your all. But with Teen Challenge, it's basically it's it's a Christian based program for people who struggle with life controlling substances.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be any type of addiction, kind of to your point. I mean, drugs or alcohol or pornography
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And basically, they're not nothing against like Alcohol Anonymous and 12-step programs or nothing like that. The teen challenge I went to was one step, and that was to the cross of Jesus Christ,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it. And that's what they preached. That's what they taught, and they began to teach you. And when you get there, there's no cell phones. There's no cigarettes. I mean, you're cut. It's basically you're giving up everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely can be tough for a lot of people who definitely been smoking for years or drinking for years or coming off of heroin or coming off of cocaine or whatever. But thankfully for me in my situation, I thank God that I never ever had any hard, um, what word am I looking for? Cravings or whatever. Um, and withdrawals or anything like that. And I'm just so thankful for that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there was days that I thought about, man, I really want a beer, or man, I really love to have a bag of Coke or smoke a blunt or whatever. I mean, there was definitely days, or cigarettes or whatever. But it was just, God helped me through it. But the program, like I said, is a 12-month program. At least when I went,
Mm-hmm.
it's a year-long program, and basically like the first 3 months is all about building a foundation upon Christ and learning the basic principles of what it means to walk with God.
Mm-hmm.
And you go through classes and things like that and learning how to read the Bible, how to pray, and etc. and things like that, memorizing scripture, taking time to really dig into God's word and time to read God's word. And there's times of we come together and just have big prayer meetings and things like that. But also, kind of half the day was like um, spending time in your word, spending time learning more about God, but also half the day was the work. Because also Teen Challenge wants to teach you responsibility, wants to teach you real life principles that You have to get out there and work. You need to be an honorable man of integrity and work hard and go to go to work and uphold a good job and things like that. And so you definitely have those basic principles and things of just working, but but also then there's a lot of rules. Some people would look at it kind of like a boot camp.
Mhm.
And I would say it's kind of like a spiritual boot camp. And some of the rules, would seem crazy because it was like, if you want a room leader or something like that, you couldn't even cut on your own light in your room. And that sounds far fetched. It sounds crazy. But me looking back now, it really teaches you simple obedience. Are you willing to obey and do whatever it takes to um, to go through the program to get your life right? And I think even in your spiritual walk, some things that the Lord may call us to do or ask us to do may seem crazy, may seem far
Mhm.
fetched, but are you willing to obey regardless of how you feel or what you think? And I think looking back now, at first when I was there, I was like, dude, this is stupid. I can't even come on light on. Like, really? I can't even take a shower when I want to take a shower or do this or do that. But like, it literally just teaches you simple obedience. And I got to the place where I didn't care. I wanted to do whatever I had to do, whatever the rules were, however long I was going to do it because I was ready to change. And this is my second go around. I was ready to change. I wanted to change. I've had probably some of my greatest spiritual experiences was that teen challenge.
Mhm.
I remember getting baptized in the Holy Spirit when I was there, getting baptized, giving my life back to the Lord. God delivered me from things that I struggled with for my whole life
Mhm.
that I never ever thought I would overcome. And I even remember the day where I was standing where God delivered me from the taste of drugs. Now, I've never ever had another strong craving for any type of drugs. And thought still comes, but it's like there's no more pull. There's no more chain attached where you
Right.
kind of feel pulled and really struggle with it anymore. I remember exactly where I was standing on the side of a hill, and I told God, I said, God, if you want me to follow you, you have to take this. And He delivered me from that point on. I've never ever had another strong craving. And so, does Teen Challenge work? For sure.
Mhm.
I would encourage anybody and everybody that desires to get set free from drugs or alcohol or whatever to definitely go. I mean, it
Yeah.
works. I'm living proof um, that it works, and I'm so thankful for that program because God used it to deliver me and save me, and so I, I, am so thankful for that program.
That's awesome. I love the program. I love when they come to church and they do the testimonies. I think that's so powerful. You can literally see the joy spilling off of the guys when they are telling their testimony. Like they're so thankful and proud, and I love it. We're actually having Teen Challenge come this month, and I'm
Yeah, I
looking
heard.
forward to it.
Yeah,
I
I
always
remember your
look forward
dad
to them.
telling me they were coming soon.
So I'm thankful for that organization. I'm glad that you went, and it, God was able to change your life, and you are here
Yeah,
and doing God's work and all that. So I'm really thankful.
me too, man. It was a life changing experience that like I said, ever since I graduated, I've never ever touched another drug. I haven't even ever even smoked a
Mm,
cigarette, drank any alcohol. I mean, God delivered me completely,
yeah.
and I mean, it's an amazing place, and I recommend, like I said, I can't stress it enough. I recommend anybody who's willing to give it all. I mean, you have to be their motto. Are you sick and tired of
Mm,
being sick and tired?
yeah.
So, and if you are, man, it's a wonderful place to go and to surrender. I went to the one in West Virginia. I mean, there's plenty of them all around, but I went to the one in West Virginia, and like I said, I'm just so thankful for
Mm,
that organization because it saved my life.
yeah. And I really think it's crazy because I know a lot of people have gone through it. Like they've actually graduated, and I don't know everybody before they went, but just hearing their testimonies is always really amazing because I don't think that other places have the success rate as Team Challenge. You just don't hear a lot of people really being changed. I mean, not saying that they can't, but you hear a lot of people, they go back. Like, as soon as
Yeah,
they get out, they just go back. And you don't hear that as much with Team Challenge, and I think that's really awesome.
yeah. I can't remember the success rate number, but it's extreme. I was about to say, I think it's like 87,
Yeah,
86%
yeah,
of those who don't go back, and that's, I mean, that's just amazing.
yeah. I think it is too. So going from that, I want to touch on something that you and your wife have experienced in this past, has it been like a year? Past
Yeah,
year?
it's been a year since Olivia passed away,
Yeah.
and then, like I said, we've had two other miscarriages, one before and one after
hmm
Olivia.
So I wanted you to talk um, about that and how what have you learned about God through walking through that really rough season.
Um, you know, me and Amber trying to have a child, and it's always been a desire for both of us. I've definitely had some very hard times. I think Olivia definitely was the hardest because she was born and we got to hold her, which I'm thankful for those 5 days that we got to have, opposed to her potentially being born and stillborn. We got
hmm
to touch her. We got to experience her squeezing our fingers and things like that. But having two miscarriages and losing Olivia, even our first miscarriage, I remember as soon as I left, just breaking down at the stop sign and yelling at God like, God, I don't understand why, because we were prophesied over that Amber would get pregnant.
hmm
And I just really believe that God, when she got pregnant, I was really believing God would fulfill that, and that the baby was going to be okay. And then when she had the miscarriage, I was just like, God, I don't understand.
hmm
But I know, I said, God, I don't understand, but I'm still gonna follow you, because I said, God, I ain't got nowhere else to go. I ain't going back.
hmm
I felt like Peter, when Jesus said, or he gave a little speech, and a lot of disciples left, and he looked at his core disciples and said, will you leave me too? And Peter was like, Lord, where else can we go? You hold the words of life, and that's literally how I feel. I
hmm
don't have anywhere else to go.
hmm
I'm not going anywhere else, and I guess that's just comes from my faith, a strong foundation that has been built. I'm not gonna say I haven't never questioned. I still question God at times. I'm not gonna say I don't, but it's been tough. I still wonder if I'll ever be. I mean, I know I'm a father, but if I'll ever see a child grow up, if I'll ever be able to hold my own child and watch them grow old, and enjoy that pleasure of being a father, and things. And I know we can adopt, something we've talked about, and I'm not saying I'm not against it, but I've always desired to have my own children, and I still question if it's ever going to happen.
hmm
You know, and you know, I know it may sound bad, but I rarely go out to the cemetery because I don't want to think of the memory of it. I
hmm
know where she's at, her spirit and stuff, but it's hard for me to, I guess, to go. Amber goes a lot, and it brings her comfort, but it's just hard for me to go out there because it doesn't bring up good memories, so to
hmm
speak. And so, but I mean, I still go out there occasionally, but it's been really tough, and Amber went through a very, very, very hard season after losing Olivia, like really, really hard. And I'm just thankful for the foundation in Christ that I already had, and being able to try to help her through it all. And it's not an easy road for anybody who
hmm
loses a child. And we've we've learned that honestly, many couples actually go through it. It's more common than what you really think. And that's something that we've learned, and we've found a lot of comfort in other couples and other people, and just to encourage us to keep on trying. And those who have lost two or three, but ended up finally having some healthy children and things like that. So it's definitely an encouragement, but it's been a hard road. Um, but I don't know. And I guess this is just the grace of God. I've always just been a person. I just accept whatever happens. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm not gonna say I don't. It don't hurt, but it's kind of like with David when he lost his child. You know, he prayed and prayed and prayed that God would spare his child, and he fasted. But after the child passed, you know, he said, well, you know, I think when his servants or whatever was like, you know, why aren't you crying or weeping, or why aren't you continually praying? He said, you know, I can't bring back the dead, but I can go to to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and David just kind of accepted the death and moved on with what God had called him to do, and moved on with who he was. And I guess that's kind of how I am. I just accept whatever it is. If it's losing my child and losing whoever, just accept it. I mean, it's not that I don't hurt or I don't mourn. I'm just not a huge crier sometimes and stuff.
Yeah.
I just kind of accept it and move on. And I know, and I'm so thankful that one day I'll be able to see her. You know, if God
Mm-hmm.
calls me home through the trumpet, or whenever I pass, you know, I'll be able to see Olivia and even my other children, and I'll be able to play with them for all of eternity. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's what really brings me joy, and I know that, and that's what I'm thankful for.
Yeah. I know it was a really rough season for both of y'all, and it breaks my heart that y'all had to go through that. To move from that to something that's more lighthearted, um, I wanted to talk about you help with the teens with New Life. I have the honor of being in your small group with the middle schoolers, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about like um, how's been your experience with working with the youth of the church, and um, what does that consist of? Like what all do you do?
Well, you know, I remember when Jessica kind of came and asked me, because you know the church I came from, I was a youth pastor there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I've even before I even went to um, Summit, which is the ministry school I went to, I was a youth leader at Sunset Church of God, and I was helping out with there. So I've kind of always helped with the youth. So I was excited kind of when Jessica asked me. I've always enjoyed working with the youth, and I love the youth here. I love how just it's growing, and there's kids of all ages,
Mm-hmm.
and just how God is just moving in them, and just as we saw Sunday, I mean, just the talents
Yeah.
and things that we have, and the callings that we have, and it's been a joy. And I'm kind of, I know I'm 38, but I'm kind of like a kid at heart. I love joking, and a lot of the youth and stuff, you know, that's gotten to know me know that I mean, I love joking. I love just I'm a hilarious person. I love laughing and having fun and things like that. But also, you know, there's a time to be serious and a time to joke around and stuff like that. But I just felt like I really connected with some of them, and you know, and I hope, you know, that some of the things that I've said, or some of the things that I've taught has just kind of impacted them. And I pray, you know, even in the future, and whatever ways that, you know, God wants to use me and at this church, or specifically in the youth,
Mm-hmm.
that God will just use me to just be a blessing to their lives, and impact and something that I say and things like that. But it's just an awesome, you know, after we left our other church, I just felt like God was just kind of wanting to plant us somewhere else. And when your dad actually invited us here, as soon as I walked in, I knew in my spirit this is where I wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
or where I should be. And so it's just been a blessing to be here. It's been a blessing to just to work with the youth and hang out with them. And go to Accelerant, which was awesome, and just do some of the things that they do and stuff. It's been a great experience.
Yeah, I love the youth here. I love how we have, like you said, we have a lot of different ages
Yeah,
and a lot of kids
and
and
that's
teenagers. A lot of churches don't have that.
mm,
And PT one time said that a church with no youth is a dying church.
no for sure.
And he went in and explained that the kids and the teenagers are the future church and future leaders of the church. So you need to pour into them. And after he said that, it gave like a little glimpse of how he looks at them, like how he looks at the youth ministry. And then I just noticed like everything the church does for the youth. Like it's a lot more than a lot of churches do.
Oh yeah, like this church stands behind them, and
Yeah.
that's an amazing thing. And like you said, I mean, you don't get that at all
Mhm.
churches, and some not trying to bash any other churches, but some churches just get kind of set in their ways and their
Mhm.
traditions, and we forget that, like you said, the children and the kids are the upcoming church.
Mhm.
And all the elders and older ones and those who have walked with God need to pour into them,
Right.
be the examples for them, and raise them up, and things like that. And I just love how this church does that. This church recognizes that and sees that, and stands behind the youth and pours into them, and you have just so many people who are behind them to help them and guide them and be examples and pray for them and
Mhm.
support them financially or through prayer or whatever. And
Mhm.
it's amazing.
It is. It's really amazing. And I mean, yesterday's service was literally not a traditional service.
Yeah, it was
It
awesome.
was amazing. And you're right. We have a lot of talent in the youth ministry, and they were able to use their gifts, and everything was ran literally by the youth, and it was awesome to watch and experience.
Yeah,
So.
I think that's one of the biggest things, and I think Jessica definitely does a good job of recognizing the gifts that
Mhm.
the kids or the young adults have, and beginning to kind of push them into walking out their gift,
Yeah.
and allowing God to use them and things like that. And that's definitely something that is a wonderful thing. It's something we all need to continue to do, is kind of stir up their gifts, and watch God just continue to grow them and use them. And it's just amazing sight to kind of
Mhm.
sit back, and even for me to participate in that and watch how God is moving.
Right.
It's just a big joy for me.
It is. It's a big joy. Um, so I think that's all the questions I have for you. Is there anything else you want to share?
Uh, Not off the top of my mind. Then like I said, I've really enjoyed you asking me. I was looking forward to it. I hope and pray just a little piece of my story and my
Mm,
testimony blesses some of you out there. And I think the main thing is just any parents, like I said, that are praying for any children, don't give up.
yeah.
I'm living proof of answered prayer. It works. Do not give up. My parents had to pray and pray and pray for years and years and years, and me and both my brothers all went down the same path, and we're all involved in church now, and God is using us. We all went down the path of drugs and things, and God set us free. So it just comes through a praying family. So it
Hmm.
definitely works. And so I'm just like I said, thank you for having me,
Yeah.
and
You're welcome. Thank you
I
for being on.
I hope my testimony and story blesses somebody.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of you
Well, thank
for
you,
sharing and grateful that I get to know you and have you on. So you did a great job.
thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Jesus the Overcomer podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and share it to your friends. See you next time.